Hi everyone, a very good morning. I hope that you can hear me clearly. Okay, so to start with, you can scan for your attendance. I will also share this on the comment in-call message. Right, thank you. Thank you, Zulhirman, also already shared the link. Okay, so before we start, basically, perhaps what we can do is that we would like to see on our plan. Okay, so if I can move this on my left hand side. Okay. All right. So basically, right now, we are in week 10, right? Uh, so we have passed this part. Okay, so we have done week 1 until week 9. So we are currently in week 10. Um, and we have few more assessment that we have to go through. Basically, we have quiz, another one quiz. Okay, so by now on for our lecture group, I have released all the three quizzes mark. Okay, and we have one more mark for the quiz. Okay, then we will also have lab test. Okay, based on the announcement. By today, I think you will also have your assignment being informed, okay, by one of the lecturer that already being assigned to do that. Okay, and then we have another test too, okay, which also have been given you the date. So I hope that by giving you the specific date that mentioned in MMLS, you guys can do proper planning if you guys wanted to have holiday or whatsoever, because the next thing, the holiday will be Chinese New Year. Okay, so hope that it's already helped you on managing your time lah. Okay, so supposedly this week lecture 10, okay, which it will be on network layer, but I will tend to move to lecture 13 on the application layer. Basically because for next week, those who under my lab, we will cover on application lab. Okay, so with that, I think it's best for me to cover application layer and then come back to the other chapter. Okay, for the lab itself, we have another two more labs on the question lah. But we for the session, I think we will still have three session that we will have to go through. Basically, for next week, week 11, for my lab session, we will have the application layer tutorial, okay, and lab. And then week 12 and 13, we will use these two sessions to complete our lab 9, which is basically on IPv6. Okay, so it's a bit more or things to be done in IPv6, so we will use two sessions for it, right? So I hope that you can understand this. So with respect to that, I would like to cover chapter 13 on the application layer for today. Is that good for you guys? Okay, lab test is online or physical, sir? Lukman asked, lab test is online or physical? Basically, the lab test, you'll be given 1 week to settle it up, which can be submitted online, right? Okay. Or the details will be given lah, but basically it's not on the same time, on the same day you have to submit. It released on the date that been given, then after 1 week, then you have to submit. Okay, right. So I wanted to have this session, okay, for application layer, right? So those who are just came in, for today we will cover lecture 13, and next week we'll perhaps I will go to chapter 10 and come back to the rest of the chapter itself. Okay, so this is just because we wanted to cover for this lecture so that you're able to do your lab next week, right? Okay, so for today's session, basically on application layer, so we have all these five layers in TCP/IP, right? So you have the lowest one, which is the physical layer. Then you have the data link layer, you have the network layer, transport layer, and eventually the application layer. So these are the layers, the top layer of your TCP/IP. Same goes if you are using the OSI model. You will have the same layer, which is the top seven layers of the OSI. So this will be the top layer of your OSI model. Okay, so in today's session, what we want to do is that we want to see some paradigm, okay, on how does this client server paradigm, especially in website communication, right? Then we will also look into how we can transfer files, not just one or two files, perhaps multiple files. So by having telnet or FTP, will be very useful if you wanted to transmit multiple file or a huge file of that need to be transferred. Okay. Yeah, right now it's much more simpler because you can just drag and drop, and the file sharing application will be based on browser. Before that, you have to use a kind of a command line in telnet, and then perhaps some application, even you can use the FTP as a command line to get your data, multiple file all together, right? So we want to look into that. The one that we have right now based on browser, where you can drag and drop with Google Drive or OneDrive in Microsoft. Okay, so that will be out of coverage for this part. Okay, and then another important application or protocols that perhaps you guys are using very commonly, basically on email protocol. Okay, so we will look into what they call SMTP, the protocol called POP3, and the protocol called IMAP. So what are the difference between those emails protocol? Okay, and how does they work together between each other? Okay, and then the comprehend of the architecture of World Wide Web and the role of HTTP in the web communication. Okay, so we will look into that perhaps in details about what are the services that World Wide Web can support, even for the email protocol, from the basis email sending up to the enhanced email sending. Okay, and then explain how DNS. DNS stands for Dynamic Name Server, meaning that this is how in the network itself, how can you change or the mapping between the IP addresses with respect to the name, domain name lah. Okay, so this will actually helps to make sure that if you have a website or email address, okay, rather than you have to remember the numbers, okay, IP addresses of the server that currently holding or giving the service. So you can have some conversion between the IP address with some domain name. Okay, so for instance, we will look into some names like google.com or perhaps microsoft.com and so forth. So how does this .com domain being given to the those who wanted to have it? Okay, so explain how DNS work for domain registration, name resolution, and managing DNS record to ensure the availability of the website and services on the internet. Right. So as usual, if you have any question, do stop me, and I will try to address if you have things that you wanted me to highlight or wanted me to repeat. Right. Okay. Before that, let me just get my device. Alright. This is device so that I can scratch on the uh, presentation slide. Right. How do I go this? Cannot move to the left hand side. It's okay. Just we can just continue. All right. So for today, things that we will cover, such as client server paradigm, then telnet, email, FTP, www, and HTTP. Okay, and also DNS. These are the things that we will cover for today, right? So to start with, okay, when you need to serve something, says that you need to serve some information, you want to share some information. So one of those things that you will do is that you will have a web server. Then with respect to the web server, those who wanted to get the information, they can tune or they can browse the web server with such information. Okay, so for instance, for our MMU website, okay, that which being hosted internally, right? So you the management will actually have the physical server, then you have to install some of the packages, okay, to set the information, such as for those who do web design, okay. Perhaps you are familiar with PHP, HTML, okay, and then also database like MySQL, okay. So you will actually kind of install some packages. For instance, you are using what we call WAMP, W-A-M-P, okay, or like package LAMP, L-A-M-P. What is this? Okay, so WAMP means Windows, then Apache is the server, Windows is the operating system. Then you have also your PHP, right? I forgot what is M. Okay. Whereas for LAMP, else represent that this is a Linux machine. Okay. So this the package that firstly, if you wanted to install your local server. Okay. So with respect to that, so that is the server lah, right? So those who wanted to get the information from the server is called client. Okay, so the application layer basically provide the service to the user. It should be clear that to use the internet, we need two application programs to interact with each other. One running on the computer, okay, somewhere in the world, okay, and the other one running on another computer somewhere else in the world. Okay, so this one would be the server, the other would be the clients. Okay, so you need to be connected from two different devices. Okay, so the two programs need to send message to each other through the internet infrastructure. Okay, so other than the physical infrastructure, you need to exchange messages, okay, between the devices, okay, and in between, they need to decide what to do with the information. Okay, so you have a few commands that relates that are going on from sender to receiver, receiver to sender. Okay, so there are what we call background process. Okay, so other than the actual information that being delivered that you can see on the device that you are using, display device. Okay, so there's a lot of other background information that has to be exchanged before the actual information can be displayed to you. Like when you have an image, right? So you need to transfer the image, okay, and behind it you need to get or there's few more multiple messages to be exchanged, right? And there are two paradigms. So the first one is what we call the client server. This is the one that we have basic web server where you can have your server and then you have your clients that connected to the server. And then we have a peer-to-peer paradigm. Okay, here means that it's a point-to-point connection. Okay, the point-to-point connection, like if you have done with your Bluetooth connection, basically is directly between the devices, right? But also the peer-to-peer paradigm here means that you can connect to each individual network, sorry, not network, each individual user, okay, through the network architecture. It doesn't have to be a direct connection, okay? So you can have this what we call peer-to-peer paradigm. One time, I can't remember the name of the program that is a sharing program. So basically, there are in that sharing file program, okay, uh, uh, very well known at that time, but I can't remember the name. So what this file program represent is that you will have a list of your download files. Okay, basically it's movie lah at that time. So you can download it from, or you have the list of files that you can download with respect to the list that being listed on the web server lah. Okay. But then when you click to download it, basically it will be downloaded not from the server but from other client. Okay, so it means that you can become the one that downloaded the file, but if you already have the file, actually you can be part of the sharing communication devices. Okay, so it doesn't download from the server, but it download from every end user that already download the file. Okay, so that is considered a peer-to-peer downloading. Okay, but for the sharing session or the file, okay, so it's based on the client server paradigm. Okay, so both are being used on that application. So this diagram just showing you lah. So you have one server over here that actually help to get to share the information throughout all the devices across the network lah. Okay, so you can come from this LAN, from the other LAN, or from the local area network itself, right? One more thing that perhaps I didn't really explain to you, okay? So sometimes, okay, just to make it simple, when you have a network architecture, okay, so since the communication between the switches are being held by the individual or the company that managing it, okay, so you don't know. So what you do is that you tend to draw a cloud, okay, so you tend to draw a cloud, and this cloud can be used to represent that this network is being interconnected, but we don't know actually how it is being interconnected, right? And this can be also be seen if you use the cloud, what they call the cloud module, okay, in Packet Tracer. Okay, so this can be done by if you don't know or didn't know how to make the connection to the network, okay, just draw a cloud network. Then the peer-to-peer, as I mentioned, okay, so when you are talking about end-to-end device, okay, the PC, your mobile phone is what we call end-to-end device, right? So when we have this peer-to-peer, means that you are communicating between these two devices, okay? Same goes as my example on the file sharing application just now. Just try to come in what's the name is, but still can't remember it. Okay, so you will have communication between end devices and you can exchange information, right? So it's a direct one. Okay, so just imagine that like the file sharing. Okay, say that this user already perhaps this user already have the file. Okay, then you can be part of the network that download it, or perhaps this user is the one that trying to get the file from for to be downloaded. So you can get part of it from this user, you can get part of this the file from this user and this user. So at that time with this file sharing, it's much more quicker to get the file fully downloaded, okay, compared to just get from one single server. Okay. Then we have what we call telnet. So telnet is actually terminal network. Okay, it is being used to manage, or if you wanted to connect to the server from far away. Okay, so there's a program, okay, in your network terminal. Okay, so that you can get information or you can access to the server from remote. Okay, so terminal network is a general purpose client server application program. Here, Telnet says that it's enable the establishment of a connection to a remote system in such a way that the local terminal appears to be a terminal at the remote system. So basically, if you have the server, you can actually access it from anywhere that being connected or have the connection to the server. Okay, and you can do something to the server itself lah. Okay, so you use a telnet at that moment of time, right? Uh, so basically, if you are on a local login, okay, so you have a terminal, then you can actually access the terminal application directly by perhaps you have a cable using USB or whatsoever, okay, to the operating system, then you can access. Okay, basically this idea came from the previous or the oldest version, where you have the what we call mainframe. Okay, so mainframe basically is the heart of past computer. Okay, so you have a very large system that you are unable to put it at any area. Okay, it should be put at some specific location, but sometimes you need to access it from outside the specific area itself. So that is where you need to do the telnet. Okay, so you can connect to the server or the system, okay, from remotely. Okay, but right now, basically, all the server can now be dumped into single PC, like your own PC or your own computer can also become a server right now. Okay, so so you can access it whenever that you wanted to have it. Okay, or perhaps you have another PC at home that you turn into a server, then you can access it from remote outside from your house. Okay, so with respect to that, okay, so you will have this what we call the telnet client. Okay, the server itself will have what we call a telnet server. So this is what we call the client server paradigm. Okay, so everything that can be accessed, it should be given to the telnet server, so that the telnet server will do some lookup, okay, from to the application itself. Okay, so this is where you can have your terminal or perhaps your PC itself that installed with the telnet client and then connected to internet. I tried to install the telnet over here, but it seems that it doesn't work for some reason. Okay, so let's see. For instance, if I try to type telnet, okay, on my computer, okay, so it will be something like this lah. Okay, so this is one of the client lah. You can install it in your Windows system. and you can actually start with the telnet. Okay, so that is one where you can do that. Okay, or you can also open your command prompt. Okay, as an administrator. Okay, so you can try to do telnet. For instance, you can type telnet, okay, to the server itself. Perhaps try to server MMU, telnet mmu.edu.my. So the command here is telnet itself. Okay. So now it's try to connect to mmu.edu.my. Do not open to the host on port connection pin. Means that you don't have the connection, but you have the client for this telnet. Okay, so you can, if you have the access, then you'll be able to access for it lah. Okay, so this is a kind of a command line application. Okay, so Telnet defines a universal interface called the Network Virtual Terminal Character Set. Via this interface, the client translate the character that come from the local terminal into NVT form and deliver them to the network, right? The server, Telnet, on the other hand, translate data and commands from NVT form into the form acceptable by the remote computer. To such a simple one, we can say that anything that needs to be configured, or if you wanted to send anything from your remote terminal, okay, so the telnet will actually change it into this NVT character. So you have the local computer character set, then it has to have this virtual terminal character set, okay, and then at the server side, you will need to convert it back into the remote computer character set. Okay, so in this communication between these two, right, the telnet client and the telnet server, you will know that these messages can be exchanges. Okay, it can be either the actual data that needs to be sent with a leading 0 bit. Okay, whereas if you wanted to send a control character, it will start with 1 as the leading bit. Okay, so this is the actual data. These are the conversation data that actually being exchanged at the back of your devices. Okay, so then we also have FTP lah. So other than telnet, okay, so you can actually get file and so forth. Okay, so there's some few commands. Okay, but it's kind of old technology. Right now, you can just use FTP or perhaps download it directly from the browser application itself. Okay, so we'll look into FTP later on. Okay, but before we go into that, okay, so the next application, so now we have the telnet application, okay, and then we also have this electronic mail, okay, or email. So for email, basically, few things that we would like to consider, right? So say that you have an email that you want to send, okay, and you wanted to send from your client, okay, so you wanted to send an email to your client, okay, you have to pass this to what we call your email server or database, okay, and basically you will see later that your email will be held this at this server, okay, oh sorry, not by meaning that say that you want to send an email, so this is your email server, and this is the email of your friend that you wanted to send to him or her, okay, so you will send this email to your mail server. Your mail server will actually look up for the your friend's mail server, okay, if it's from the same, it's okay lah, say that this is a different mail server that being used, okay, so it will sit at this part, okay, the mail will sit at this server until your friend access this, okay, so basically what we can see later on is that you will have this push protocol. So from here to here is a push, okay, Same goes from here to here is a push protocol, and from here to here is a pull. Okay, because the very basic thing that you have to understand is that the email that you send to your friend will be sent to the mail server of your friend, and it will sit there until your friend access it. Okay, and your friend will use some application using this pull protocol, so that you're able to get the mail from this mail server. Okay, so the push protocol over here usually we call, or the one that we have is SMTP lah. Okay, and the pull protocol, it can be either POP3, uh, POP3 or IMAP, right? I hope that you have heard about this. Okay, so during my study time, every time we wanted to have email access, okay, you do need to do some setup. Right now, everything is much more simpler. You just access your, like, our email address or email client is on the browser, right? Okay, so not much thing. You just have to log in and then you can use it on the fly. Okay, so before this, we have to set up. Okay, during my time, my study time, you need to know what is the POP3 address, what is the SMTP address. Then you have to do some connection and so forth. Okay, so that is during past time. Okay, so it's a bit difficult to get this email setup. Okay, but right now everything is very simple and everything is actually on browser. Okay, during my time we use what we call application called Pegasus email. Okay, so it's an application just for the purpose of reading and sending email. Okay, right. The slide that we have is basically a step by step of what I've been mentioned to you. Okay, whereby in an email system, basically when you need to send any email, so you will send it to your server itself, and then your server will actually forward it to the email of the recipient. Okay, and the email will actually hold there until the recipient access it, download it or whatsoever lah. Okay, so here you have on the same system lah. So when the sender and the receiver of email are on the same system, okay, so we all need only two user agent, right? So here, if you are on the same system as I mentioned, so when you send an information, the message will actually be stored or held over here until your friends here Bob access it. Okay, so the user agent is a software package program that composes, read, reply, and forward messages. Okay, so this is the application itself lah. Okay, so here also perhaps the application that can support both lah, meaning that this application is an application to send an email and also to read the email. Okay, same goes for here. Okay, so but if you have the system say that alice@mmu.edu.my, so the system is actually mmu.edu.my, and Bob is from the same organization, mmu.edu.my, so you just need to have this one server that connect between these two end user that exchange the email messages, right? And then say now they are from different mail server lah. Okay, so when the sender and the receiver of the email are on a different system, we need two UAs and a pair of empty client and server, right? So basically you will see that you will have this mail server, okay, of your own. Okay, say that this is mmu.ed.my, this is tm.com.my. Okay, so you wanted to send from MMU to TM, right? So you will send it, and the server itself perhaps is the client, can be the both client and also server. And here also is actually client and server itself. So, but for this situation, you wanted to send, so it becomes the client. Then the message will be sent to the server itself. Okay. Here, as I mentioned, if Bob is not ready to receive it, the email will stuck here lah. Okay. So, but you need to have this two UA, user agent, and you have to have two MTA. Okay, MTA client and MTA server, right? Then message transfer agent are required to send the message to the internet. So this one they need to communicate between each other. Then so the third scenario one, when the sender is connected to the mail server by LAN or a WAN, we need two UAs and two pairs of MTA and client server. Okay, so now perhaps you are on a different network, okay, but you wanted to send to this server. Okay, so you have to pass through the local area network or the wide area network. Compared to the previous one, you are connecting directly to the mail server. Okay, this is the second scenario. But for the third scenario over here is that you are on different network, okay, and the server, email server is on a different network, and the mail server is also on a different network. So there are three different networks over here. So when the sender is connected to the mail server via a LAN or MAN, you need two UAs and two pairs of TA. Okay, so no changes, meaning that you still need to have this UA, okay, two UAs, okay, and then you need to have this MTA client that connect to this mail server, okay. So you will need to have this, and then between here and here you have to have this, okay. So you have the client server communication between your end device and also your server, okay, and then as the server receive it, so it will forward it into the recipient mail server. Okay, so it's again use the client and server type of communication. Okay, so you need to have two UAs and two pairs of MTA. Just now you have only one MTA. Okay, so one pair. But here you will have two pairs between this and this and this and this. Okay. And the fourth scenario where now all the user will have different network. Okay, so you have to connect it to the server, and then the server will send to the recipient server. Then you will access it through another type of client server method lah. Okay, so here you can see that when both sender and receiver are connected to the mail server, okay, we need two UAs. Okay, the user agent still have two pairs of MTA. Okay, so MTA and two pairs of MAA. So MAA is message access agent required to retrieve the message at the destination computer. Okay, so basically this MTA is using this SMTP. Okay, and the MAA is using POP3 or IMAP. Okay, so these are the common situations here. This is the most common situation over here where your server is located perhaps at this server farm. Okay, this one perhaps is being separate over a distance, okay, because it's from the different organization. So when you want to send, you have to send it through network. So you have one MTA pair and then another one from the sender server to the receiver server, email server, okay. And then here MAA, the green one, represent that message access agent where you can actually retrieve it. Okay, so there are few steps lah. Okay, if compared to this. Okay, so as mentioned just now, okay, the term pull and also push. Okay, so here it says that figure 9 push versus pull in electronic mail. Okay, so here as mentioned, when you send for the MTA just now, okay, so it's a client pushes messages, meaning that this is a push protocol. Okay, so you send the message from the client to the server. Whereas here is a pull protocol. Okay, so the MAA, when you want to retrieve, these are using the pull protocol. Okay, so in email, these are the concept. Okay, where you need to have your client server, and you need to have at least two different protocols to send and also to retrieve the information of your email. Okay, so the continue from that, the actual mail transfer is done through message transfer agent, and to send an email, a system should have a client MTA, and to receive the email, a system must have a server MTA. Okay, so these are the things that already being shown to you just now. Okay, so you have the client and server. And the terminal protocol that defines the MTA client and server in the internet is called Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. So this is the SMTP. So this is a push. Okay. So remember this, when you have an email that want to send to your receiving server, okay, or receiving email address, okay, you use push. Okay. And then for the recipient, you will use a pull protocol. Okay. So you need to have, or you are using the protocol called SMTP to push your email from the sender to the mail server. Same goes there. The SMTP still being used to be sent from the mail server to the mail client. Okay. So this part will be defined later on. Okay. Protocol used by MTA, already mentioned, SMTP and MAA is actually being defined over here. We have the POP3 and IMAP. Okay. So the first and the second stage in email delivering, MTA client use the SMTP. SMTP is not involved in the third stage where MAA server client, because SMTP is a push protocol and it push the message from the client to the server. On the other hand, the third stage need a pull protocol. Okay, so there's a pull protocol, and the client must pull message from the server to the client. Okay, and the third stage use what we call MAA. And the two common protocol right now is actually post office protocol and also IMAP, Internet Mail Access Protocol. So these two different protocol is the difference is actually how it get the messages from the server. Okay, so POP3 basically you are trying, whenever that you receive the email, you wanted to download, you will be able to download the email messages to your own client. Okay, whereas IMAP, when you use IMAP, basically you are currently accessing the mail server. Okay, so all the messages will be stored at the mail server. Any changes or folder that you are using on the mail server will change whenever that you do some changes. Okay, so basically IMAP is all the files is accessing directly to the mail server, whereas the POP3 basically you can download it. Okay, then when you already download the message, you have two options. Either you wanted to retain the mail on the server, or you wanted to delete. Okay, so if you delete, means that the messages is not there anymore on the server. It's only on your client side. Okay, so that's the difference between POP3 and IMAP4. Okay, so here you can see that the first stage is using SMTP, second stage is using SMTP, and the third stage is either using POP3 or IMAP4. Okay, so this is push, and this is pull. Okay, pull, P-U-L-L. This is push, and this also push. Okay. So what is a simple mail transfer protocol? So within the internet itself, okay, it's the standard that being used to communicate lah, between the server, between the client. Okay, so they use this SMTP protocol. Okay, And basically, when you do this specific application, you will also have what we call a specific port. Okay, so here within the internet, email is delivered by using the source machine established in TCP connection with a port of 25. Okay, so two things that you need to understand. It use TCP. Why TCP? We haven't covered that, okay, because this is on the transport layer. Basically, TCP is what we call reliable. Reliable means that if you send a message, the message will actually delivered to the receiver, and the receiver will acknowledge it. Okay, so that is what we call reliable. You have another protocol on the transport layer called UDP, unreliable control protocol. Okay, the UDP means that it's not reliable. So when you send a message, you don't care either it reach or not the receiver. Okay, so here TCP is a reliable connection, and for this to be delivered, it use this port 25. Okay, so when this port 25 is being used, basically when you have to configure your client, which actually right now you don't have to do that. During my time, we have to know what is the IP address of the server, and then what is the port that being used. Even right now, this port sometimes can be changed, but the standard one is 25 lah. Okay, and you can perhaps if you use your not packet tracer lah, you using the one that capturing the packet. Okay, the software that we use to capture packet. Okay, so if you wanted to specifically look at SMTP, so you can filter SMTP or you can filter on the port number, right? For TCP, you have other application also using TCP. Okay, but this one, the port 25 specifically is for SMTP. So SMTP function are accept incoming connection and copy the message into the appropriate mailboxes. Okay, so it will accept the incoming connection and then send it to the appropriate mailbox. Okay, so SMTP is a simple ASCII protocol. Okay, so if you wanted to send enhanced kind of messages, like you wanted to send videos, you want to send link or whatsoever, so you need to have an enhanced protocol to deliver this. Okay, so the email is delivered by having the sender establish a TCP connection to the receiver and then ship the email over it. So the problem is that if I want you to send an email and you are not online, I cannot establish a TCP connection to you and thus cannot run the SMTP. Okay, as compared to point-to-point connection, okay, where if you wanted to send directly the email to your receiver, okay, so we call it real time. Okay, so if the user is not there, so you are unable to send the information. Okay, but this email kind of messages, basically what we call non-real time. Okay, so you wanted to send it although the user itself is not there. Okay, so this is the main idea behind email. So one solution is to have a message transfer agent on the ISP machine accept an email for its customer and store it in the mailbox on an ISP machine. Okay, so that is what the term here, stored here, means that the email that you have sent, okay, it will be stored at the mail server of your recipient. Okay, so this is if you have your own server. This solution create another problem. How does the user get the email from the ISP message transfer agent? Okay, so if you are not from the same email system, okay, so how do you get this? Okay, so that is why the solution is that by creating another protocol, okay, on a client PC, so that you can retrieve it. Okay, so this is called POP3. So after you have stored it into the server, so you want to retrieve, you use POP3 to retrieve it. Okay, Again, it has the connection still using TCP, but the port right now is using 110, right? Just now you use the port 25, and for port 3, you are using 110. So port 3 begins when the user start the email reader. The mail reader call up the ISP unless there is already a connection established, a TCP connection with the message transfer agent at port 110. Okay, so these are the things that if you wanted to retrieve the information. Okay, another protocol that used to access your email is what we call IMAP, Internet Message Access Protocol. Okay, so now say that in a situation that you are currently on vacation over here, say, okay, using the POP3, the result is my email will be spread everywhere since POP3 normally download all store message at each contact. Okay, one of the problem with POP3 is that if you are accessing at different devices, okay, and you install the device, the email application of in the on the different device, okay. So when you download and you deleted the file from the server on one device, the file or the email will not be cannot be accessed from the second device. Okay, so you'll be blinded, you won't be able to access it. Okay, so that is one of the problem. Okay, this can be solved by having this IMAP. So the since here this advantage give rise to the alternative final delivery protocol called IMAP, where IMAP assume that all the email will remain on the server identified in the multiple mailboxes. Okay, so perhaps the question that come into your mind, is Gmail is using IMAP or whatsoever? Okay, so basically, Gmail is using browser application. Okay, whereas this IMAP is actually the one that having to access it using some client. Okay, so you don't have to use IMAP for you to use Gmail lah. Okay, and since the working assumption is that the message will not be transferred to the user's computer for permanent storage, IMAP provide mechanism of creating, destroying, and manipulating multiple mailboxes on the server, right? So these are the advantage of IMAP. Okay, so if you have email client, okay, so you can choose either use POP3 or IMAP. Okay, but now much more simpler where you actually get your message or email from your browser application itself. Okay, that is on the protocol. That is the transfer protocol lah. So you have the SMTP and also the IMAP and POP3, right? But for the email itself, it needs to have extension so that it can support any kind of messages, right? Okay, so this multi-purpose internet mail extension MIME protocol will help you to get enhancement from your email rather than just text, ST text. Okay, so email has a simple structure but with limitation. SMTP can be used to send only NBT. Okay, its purpose is to send message only. Cannot use for languages that are not support with 7-bit. Okay, so with SMTP, it cannot use other languages. Okay, it just can support the ASCII character. Okay, so if you have Arabic, Chinese, French, German, or any other language that you can mention over here, it cannot be accepted lah. So cannot be used to send binary file. Also, it cannot be used to send binary file or video or audio data. Okay, so it cannot support this. So then enter MIME lah. Okay, so MIME is a supplementary protocol that allows a non-ASCII data to be sent through email, and MIME transform non-ASCII data at the sender side to NVT ASCII data. Okay, so it means that you are still using this NVT on the center of the communication, but the information is being converted into this ST lah. Delivered to the client MTA to be sent through internet, and message at the receiving side is transformed back to the original data, right? So this is the flow. Non-ASCII messages being inserted into MIME, then the MIME will convert it into 7-bit ASCII and then received by the receiver and converted it back using MIME, and you can receive the non-ASCII code messages. Continue with that. MIME define 5 headers. Okay, so these are the 5 headers. Adding to the original email header section to define the transformation header. So what is the version of the MIME? Okay, what is the type of the MIME? Okay, then what is the encoding type? Okay, and message ID, and last but not least, the textual explanation of non-text content. Then you have the email body. So these are the email header, okay, or the MIME header, and this is the email body itself. Okay. So the MIME version, okay, the first part is where you need to identify what is the version, right? Okay. So the version defines, okay, say that 1.1, okay, version 1.1, okay, and then the content type, okay, so you have to define the content type. So you have this lah. The type can be 0 is either plain or HTML, okay, because you will see that it needs to be submitted either the type or subtype. So if it's a plain one, it's just mentioned plain. If it's HTML, it will mention HTML. Then if it's another type of messages such as image, it will define image / JPEG, okay, video / MPEG, audio / basic, for instance. Okay, so these are the few different types of and subtype that being used in MIME. Okay, and then for the encoding part, okay, so there are a few different encoding. Okay, so you can use 7-bit, 8-bit, binary, radix 84, or quotable printable. Okay, so these are being defined on the third character. Okay, what is the encoding type over here? So these are the few encoding type that can be used. And then the next thing is the message ID, right? But then it doesn't define over here, right? So just for this, there's an example of calculation. So in SMTP, okay, you have a non-ASCII message of 3000 byte in a coded radix 64 method. Is divided into 6-bit chunk and converted into ASCII character of 8-bit. Identify the number of byte in the encoding message. Okay, identify the number of byte that are redundant, and identify the ratio of redundant bytes to the total message. Okay, so basically the first thing that you have to do is that you have to convert this into bits. So 3000 times by 8, you have 24 bits. Okay, and then you wanted to have this what they call it, convert it into 6-bit of chunk. So out of this 24,000 bit over here, you divide by 6. So now you know how many character that represent per bytes, right? Okay, and then identify the number of byte of the redundancy. Okay, so now you have a total of 4,000 minus by 3,000 byte. So you have a leftover of a redundance of 1,000 byte that you need to insert it lah. And then the ratio, identify the ratio of redundant byte to the total message is actually 1,000, which are the leftover, divided by the 3,000, which is the actual one. So you have 33.33%. Okay. So this is how it is being converted. Okay, so on ASCII you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bits. Okay, 1 byte. Okay, and it's being converted, or it's being defined as a block, right? Okay, and then using this converter, you have to put it into 6. Okay, so rather than these 3 block, now you have the 4 block altogether, right? Okay, so you will take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over here and become this part. Okay, Then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over here and become this part. Okay. And then you have also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 okay, over here to here. 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 Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 be inserted over here, and the last one will be inserted over here, right? Then with respect to that, okay, so then you can send it the ASCII data and retrieve it back at the receiving end. So these are the 64 radix encoding table. I reckon that you don't have to remember this. Okay, it's just to show you. And this is the ASCII table, right? So those who haven't seen any ASCII table, so this would be the ASCII table itself. Okay. For instance, if you want to have an A, is actually hexadecimal 61. Okay. If you have a Z, okay, basically is 7A itself. Okay, so these are in hexadecimal. Okay, or you can also use the quoted printable encoding, okay, and this is how it looks like on how you can convert it, okay. Right, so that would be it for email messaging. Okay, so what we have looked into is some of the protocols. Basically, you have the push protocol of SMTP, and then you have the pull protocol with respect to the POP3 and also IMAP. And also we have looked into MIME to support non-ASCII types of data. Okay. So next, we wanted to move to what we call World Wide Web. Okay, World Wide Web. World Web. World Wide Web. WWW. Right. So the term www is basically common when you wanted to serve any web server, right? www.mmu.edu.my, www.google.com, www. And so forth. Okay, but if you actually denote is that right now we rarely use this www anymore. Okay. So if you wanted to go to MMU website, okay, although we have this www.mmu.edu.my, but we usually just mention that is mmu.edu.my. Even if you are Google, www.google.com, you can use the google.com instead of the whole domain name lah. Okay, so with the World Wide Web, okay, so it use the client and server types of services. Okay, so if you have a client over here, you will request to site A server and you get a reply, okay, whatever message or the data that you want to retrieve from site A. Same goes for site B. Okay, so the client and server. Okay. However, the service provider is distributed over many locations called site. Okay, so you can have this MMU, this you have your Google site and so forth. Okay, so the same client and server architecture, right? And it actually lies on browser. Based on browser, the application will be based on browser, where your browser actually have where you can manage it through your keyboard, okay, and mouse, and then you can see it through your monitor. So this is the controller, okay, being used for your input. Then you can actually get all the services of your application layer. Okay, so you have the HTTP, FTP, Telnet, SMTP. Okay, so these are if you are being asked in the test or assessment, name 4 different type of application protocols. Okay, so you can actually name this HTTP, FTP, Telnet, and SMTP. Okay. Then you have this interpreter. Okay, the HTML is for website, the JavaScript for kind of application or animation to your website. Okay, so these are the called interpreter to be represented. Right, then we have the IP address, and also you have what we call URL lah, Uniform Resource Locator, the URL. With the URL here, it needs to define basically the first part is the protocol. If you are using HTTP, so the first protocol will be HTTP. If you are using SMTP, then SMTP. If you are using Telnet, so Telnet. Okay. Then the host, usually the IP addresses. Okay. And then the port. Okay. For email just now, if you try to send your email, so you use port 25. Then the path lah, if the application is being stored into some other path. Okay. So with respect to that, if you say that you wanted to access to MMU website, so it will be HTTP, okay, colon double slash, then mmu.edu.my, okay. Then you have a colon, port 25. Okay, so that can be one, okay, or if you have extend it to another path, maybe mail, so you can extend it to mail. Okay, so here it says that URL or work document addresses. Okay, so the protocol, it can be FTP, HTTP, news, telnet. The host will be computer where information is located, which is your IP address or perhaps the domain name lah. Okay, so you can use this as IP address or domain name. So host can be IP address or what we call your domain name. Okay, because basically it's the same thing lah. IP address and domain name is just to translate lah between the address in the machine world into a human world. Okay, because human doesn't really remember numbers lah. Okay, so you have to convert it into domain. And then the port separated by colon, the default port is 80 for your URL. Okay, so port 80, and the path name of the file on the server. Okay, so if you have your file, okay, say that mail.jpg, okay, maybe an image. Okay, so you have the path over there. Okay, for the World Wide Web, okay, basically is using HTTP. Okay, so HTTP represent the Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Okay, which is a protocol used mainly to access data on the World Wide Web. Okay, and HTTP function as a combination of FTP and SMTP. Okay, so it can be used for both FTP and SMTP, okay, on top of this HTTP. So you will request and the user will respond. Okay, and again, this will be using TCP for reliable type of communication, and the port it used is port 80 most of the time. Right now, you can also see that they're using port 8080, okay, for different HTTPS for itself. Okay. So what is HTTP? Is hypertext transfer protocol used for communication between web browser and the web server, and based on the request response model, browser send and HTTP request, server send and HTTP respond, and communication between them ends. This is what we call a web page static. Okay, so it doesn't actually have other means of communication. For instance, to the web, to the data or database. Okay, it doesn't have any access to any animation or whatsoever. Okay, so static information is being stored on the server, and the client will request for the static information. Okay, so this is the very basic one of your HTTP protocol. Okay. So the command that being used, okay, if it's a plain information being transferred, you use what we call get. Okay, get space what is the file, and then what is the information that you wanted to request. Okay, so here HTTP interaction. So you try to get, and then the information we reply can say with a response of 200 okay. Okay. Else you will have 400 decline or whatsoever lah. So you have a different message. So get is the most common HTTP method. It says give me these resources, and the path is the part of the URL after the host name. Okay, so where is the location of your URL? Okay, so you have to put it here. Okay, and if it's properly being resolved, then the web server will request or will reply with an 200 okay. So for static web pages, okay, so you request, you will get response. So that will be basic. A web page in HTML stored on the web server. User request for the page, server locate the page on its hard disk, and HTTP sender back to the HTTP response. And content of the web doesn't change, depends on request. Okay, so basic web server is that it's a static website. Okay, so this is very old. Right now, you need to have dynamic web pages. Okay, so in a dynamic web pages, basically, rather than just these two steps, okay, request, respond, but you need to perhaps get some other information from other ends. Okay, so like now, okay, so you wanted to have an application-based browser based application. Okay, so your application is being accessed to the web server, okay, and it will respond. Okay, so say that you wanted to play games, okay, on this web server. Okay, so your games will actually run on the server. Okay, so this is how it looks when you have a dynamic web pages. Okay, so for a dynamic web pages, okay, you can access, for instance, database, okay, or perform transaction processing. Okay, so for a static one, you can't do anything. But if it's a dynamic one, say for instance, you want to get access from some API, so that one will be a dynamic types of web access. The program output HTML, which is used to construct the HTTP response by the web server. Okay, so basically this is how it's being defined on the browser, so that you can look properly. HTML will define how to display image, how to display line, how to display header, and so forth. Okay. Server send back HTTP response to the web server. Example, dynamic web page for reading the latest stock prices from a database and use them to respond HTTP requests. Okay. Other tools for creating dynamic web pages, for instance, the CGI, okay, the Microsoft ASP.NET, PHP, and so forth. You have also Java server pages and so forth. Okay, so that on the web pages. Moving on, as mentioned just now, other than the telnet, okay, you can also have FTP, okay, file transfer protocol. Okay, so here the purpose of this protocol application, okay, so it can be protocol application, is to access or to transfer a large amount of files between end devices lah. Okay, so between server to server or perhaps server to client. So the client has three components. You have the user interface, client control process, and the client data transfer process. Okay, so basically in FTP you will have two ports that actually communicate. You have the port 20 and port 21. Okay, so here we'll see that you use port 20 and port 21. Okay. So the server has two components, the server control process and the server data transfer process. Okay, so the server control process basically is on the communication between the server. It needs to exchange information, what to do now. Do you need to close the channel, or you need to open the channel, you start to transfer or whatsoever. Okay, so that is where you have used to use the server control process channel. And the transfer of data will be using different channels. So in FTP, the control is on one channel, then the data is being transferred on another channel. Okay. So unless the control instruct the transfer of data to be used, the other channel will be not being used until it is being assigned to do some transfer. Okay, so the one that perhaps that play important role is the server control process. So the control connection is made between the control process and the data made between the data transfer process. Okay, so the background messages is being processed by the control process, and then for the data connection is being using the data transfer process. Okay, the control connection remain connected until entire interactive FTP session, and the data connection is open and then closed for each file transfer. Okay, so this is what is the function of this control connection. Okay. Um, on the transport network, again, since you wanted to have a reliable data, so it used TCP. Okay, it needs two TCP connection, which is the 21 for the control connection and also port 20 for the data connection. Okay, so here you have the user interface, then you have the control process and also the data transfer process. Okay, so you have this connection. So this connection is using port 21. Okay, data connection, whereas the data that control connection, where the data connection is using port 20, right? Uh, and then again, because you are using the ASCII control connection, okay, so you need to like kind of have a control process, okay, that exchange the information, okay, so your control process then transfer to your ASCII control connection, okay. And on the data connection, okay, so your data transfer process being transferred to data connection and received by the receiver. Okay, so here it says that file type, data structure, and transmission mode are defined by the client. Okay, so that is for the data connection. And last but not least, I think we will have this what we call DNS. Okay, so DNS is domain name system, right? So the one that being designed when you wanted to browse anything, okay? mmu.edu.my is the one we call domain name system, okay? Or you get a domain lah. So how do you get the domain? This is how it's being assigned to the end user. So again, DNS is a client server paradigm. Okay, provide name service. Okay, so this is the function: provide name service for other application. Okay. So it enable the use of application layer address, okay, such as email address instead of network layer logical address. Okay, so now rather than you need to send an email, say Amin, okay, you can still send this lah if you know what is the IP address. Say alias 192.168.0.1. Okay, so you can send the email address direct to here. Now with the DNS, you can send Amin at mmu.edu.my. Okay, so this is the same thing, meaning that this is translation between the IP address to your domain name. Okay, so the IP address, again, for those who did not know, is what we call logical address. Okay, on the network layer, whereas here you can application layer address. Okay, so it calls application layer address. Okay, so the domain name itself. Okay, so here this diagram shows the example of how a DNS client server program can support an email program to find the IP address of an email recipient. Okay, so when you have a user that are trying to get the name, say here you wanted to have the mmu.edu.my, okay, so basically when user wanted to find the host name, so the network will actually request to the DNS client of the whereabout of this name server lah. Okay, so you will try to query, okay, and then you have a DNS client on your system, and DNS server will respond towards it. with some specific IP address, then you can pass it to the IP address on the network layer itself. Okay, so you have an application layer process that convert or that translate into the IP addresses before it pass through the network layer. Okay, so the question is that why don't you use just like the ARP table where you match between the MAC address and also the IP address? Well, you can't do that because the name will be very huge and your PC doesn't support that. So you need to have a DNS server that actually sits all or have all the information that relates to it. And the DNS server is not just a single DNS server lah. So it will have multiple DNS server that perhaps it based on the layering of the DNS server lah. Okay, so this is how it's supposed to be done. Then for the naming purpose here, okay, you can have the namespace mapping. Okay, so it's not just like matching between all the name and the domain name, okay, the IP address and domain name, but it is much more complicated in the sense that you wanted to have the domain, then you have the subdomain and so forth. Okay, so you can either use this, what we call flat name service, unstructured name assigned to an address. So it is not being structured, but it cannot be used in a large system such as internet because it must be centralized control to avoid duplication. Okay, so you can't do this. Okay, so we have to opt for what we call hierarchical whatsoever lah. Hierarchical namespace, okay, where you structure name assigned to an organization, and the organization can have some prefix or suffix to the name of defined its source or resources. Okay, so you can use this hierarchical kind of standard. Okay, so DNS is a protocol that can be used in different platform. And the internet, the domains namespace tree is divided into 3 different sections. It can become generic domain, country domain, and inverse domain. Okay, so you have this called IANA that managing the domain name, right? So it will give you the name either it's based on the inverse domain or the inverse domain, the general domain or the country domain. Okay, so basically the general domain is .com, okay, perhaps .info and so forth. Okay, the country domain is when you have .ed, for instance, you have .edu, .my, you have .my, .us and so forth. Okay, so that is the different domain. Okay, so the generic name, okay, so where you can have the net.com, the biz, the aero, and so forth. Okay, but you can also see that now you have more than what we have right here. Okay, so for instance, if I go to what I usually use when I wanted to find a domain name, this one not Sugar Daddy. This is what we call GoDaddy. .com. Okay, so this one say that you wanted to find a name, find a perfect domain name. Okay, say that one of your friend Kamal kan, Dr. Kamal. So search the domain. So it will start to search for you. Okay, it says that here, okay, Kamal.today, okay, it's only 10 ringgit for the first year. Very cheap. If anybody names Kamal, okay, and you wanted to have your own domain, .today, okay. Now you can see that for the generic domain name right now, it doesn't have only this. Okay, you can have a lot of other domain generic domain name. Okay, if you scroll down, you can see that these are a few of the solution that being given to you. Okay, now you have .com is the typical one. Now you can have .live. even .skin, the .com is typical, and then this name the one that you have to choose lah. You have .club, .zone, .win, .bet, .goal, and so many rock, community, and so forth. So now they will have more than the one that mentioned over here. Okay, so much more open for the end user, or much there's a lot of option lah for the end user to have this domain name. Okay, but you can see that it's not that expensive lah if the domain name is not what they call it, not so it's short for lah. Okay, but if you say that like Kamal.win over here, you can see it can go to up to 2,000, but here mkamal.com up to 20,000. Okay, so it depends on what you wanted to have lah, right? And then you can also have based on country domain. Okay, so for instance, for if we are in Malaysia, so that try exabytes.com. Okay, so this is one of the Malaysian service web service provider. Okay, so you can have all the hosting over here. Say that you wanted to find Kamal just now, kamal.my. Okay, so here you can actually specify the country. So Malaysian usually .my. Okay, and when you ask, it says that kamal.my is unavailable. Okay, then try some other thing, Kamal Trouble. This is for just an example lah. Okay, also it's not there. Let's say Cyberjaya. I would say also it's not Cyberjaya Selang. Okay, or it's also unavailable. But basically, if you go to some other website, when you want to search for the domain name, it will give you some other solution like the GoDaddy just now lah. But it seems here it doesn't give you any other option. Oh, it gives you. Oh, sorry. So you have the other option lah. Rather than you have wanted to have the .my, now you can see that .com also have. It's just 9.9 USD. Okay, so not that expensive, right? So you can have the .com, .net, .com, and so forth. The difference is that with if you have the generic one, okay, you can register directly to the DNS service provider. But if you are using country, basically you wanted you to make sure that you show some proof that you are really that specific country in that country lah. Okay, so you have to show if you are a company, then you have to show your company registration and so forth. Okay, so some address and so forth. So here you can base on this. Okay, so .my can be part of it. Okay. So with respect to that, what we can say is that we have done gone through to what we call client-server paradigm. Okay, we have seen Telnet as the basic communication to the server, okay, where you can actually access it from remote. Okay, and then we also have seen how emails work. Okay, where it defines at least 4 protocols. So you have the SMTP, you have the POP3, you have the IMAP, and finally you have the MIME. Okay, and then for FTP, file transfer protocol, you look at this FTP where you have 2 different channels, okay, that use port 20 and 21. Okay, and then the www or HTTP where you have port 80 being used to deliver any kind of either static or dynamic website. Okay. And last but not least, you have the domain name system where it is being defined hierarchically, okay, so that you're able to have it or simply need to manage it. Okay, so with DNS, you can now remember the domain name, okay, rather than the IP address that being matching to that domain name itself, right? Okay, so before I open for any question, I really need your help, okay, to actually do the teaching evaluation system, okay. So still, since we have some time, perhaps I give you a few minutes, and then later I'll answer question. So I really want you to go to this, go to click.mmu.my, or perhaps you log into that, and then you can go and actually fill in uh, the teaching evaluation form right now. Okay, so I wanted you to do this right now so that you, if you have or if you are busy later on, you have done that. Okay, so please help us to do this evaluation. So uh, please help to do it right now. Okay, and then I'll come back to answer if there's any question that relates to our program or subject. Okay, so I think most of you have finished up the exercise. Okay, uh, if you haven't done that, please do so because it's really help us um, to make it acceptable lah. Because like for our class, more than 50 people, so with 50 students, 30% need to be participating in this, right? So you just give your whatever your comments or your rating based on what we have delivered, right? So perhaps I can open if you have any other question or anything that you want me to make things clear up. Okay, please send me a message or you can on your microphone and just speak on it. Lukman asks, we have tutorial 3 p.m. today like normal, right? Yes, you have. We will have it. The reason why I just want to share the reason why that I turn this into online session is because I have some problem to passing my urine just now. Okay, I have this previous experience also on difficulty of passing urine. Okay, basically there's some stone that block my pass of urine or my so today it happened and alhamdulillah the stone actually already flashed out just now. Okay, so this morning, so I'm a bit relief right now. Okay, so that is why in the morning I'm not feeling well right now. It's okay. So for the afternoon session, we will have a physical one. When test one result? Soon. I'm still haven't finished. Okay. On marking for test one. Oh, sir, that's medical illness, right? Yes, it's a medical illness. Because of if you have a very high acid uric in your blood, then there are two conditions usually will not impose lah, will deteriorate your health lah. One is when you have this what they call goutry, okay, so you unable to walk because of this crystal in your joints. Okay, so I've also experienced that very painful. And there's another one is when the stone itself is in your kidney. Okay, so actually have done 3 times for this stone. Okay, that blocking my urine. Okay, so I've done that procedure 3 times before this. And it's very painful. So I have that this morning, and eventually the stone came right after I have my passing urine. I have the stone, but I cannot show to you. Okay, any other question? Or else I can just wrap up and let you go. Okay, for today's session. Any further question? All right, thanks, Daniel. No question. Thank you for Wang Yan Hong. Okay. Assignment, it was supposed to release yesterday, right? Yeah. That is for the assignment. Basically, we have assigned one of the lecturer that teaching the subject. So he mentioned that he wanted to release yesterday. So I need to ask him when he can release it. Okay, because that's the deadline. Okay, so I need to follow up on this. Okay, the one say no, sir. All right. If you guys don't have any further question, I can stop this recording. Stop recording.